years later, and he forgives them. Now, but before he forgives them, well, he's probably forgiven them before he sees them, but he decides to be in a relationship with them again, to trust them again, but he tests them first. Now, if you are going to forgive someone, be friends with them after they hurt your feelings, what happens? Like, if someone, if a friend of yours, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, does something that hurts you, what do you do after that?
We don't have to squat down. Just walk next.
Responsible grown-up.
You dealt a responsible grown-up. So you don't go hurt them back. Joseph does not hurt his brothers, even though they hurt him. The right thing to do is to tell somebody else. Now, what if there is no other responsible adult? What if you are an adult? What if you're an adult and someone hurts you? What do you do?
Go to the police.
Go to the police? That's actually good. That's good. That is good. That if you are an adult, don't beat them up and run. Tempting, right? No. Okay. What if I am a policeman? And I'm in charge, I'm the chief of police. But someone in my family. What?
Say the boss of my family.
The boss of the family, okay?
Ask God for help.
Ask God for help. Well, here's
You
what.
gotta go take them to jail if they mess with you.
You're right. You might have to take him to jail. Well, Joseph does end up putting his brothers in jail. But what Joseph does is he tests them. He sets a little trick for them to see if after all these years they're different. Because it was a long time ago that they hurt him. And then he sees them many, many years later. And he tests them and finds out that they are different. That they're not as mean as they used to be. Now, sometimes people change. You know how? Have you ever been mean in the past? Now, have you ever gotten better though? Have you done good things? You've gotten better. You can do better. I know that. And so Joseph's brothers got a little bit better, and he forgave them, and he was in a relationship with them again. They hugged, and they were together again, and they loved each other again, treated each other with respect. So what I want you to know is that sometimes people change, they become better, and that means that you can forgive them, and you can trust them again, in a relationship with them again. You're willing to forgive people if they'll change and say, "I'm sorry"? What if they say, "I'm sorry"? I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." You still won't forgive me? Pretty clear. Well, then we need to have a pastoral conversation.
Don't listen to Jonah when he said the people don't change.
Yeah, you're right. Jonah says people don't change, but Jonah's wrong, isn't he?
Yeah. Even for a prophet.
That's right. And Jonah has to learn to change. He changes, so other people change as well. Well, let's hold hands and let's pray.
Only change after getting eaten by a fish. Anyone would change after.
Yeah, anybody would change after getting eaten by a fish. That's right. That might be what it takes. Yes, let's pray. Dear God, we thank you so much for these kids that are so wise and honest, and we're grateful for their presence with us. God, help us to ask for forgiveness when we wrong others, and help us to forgive when others have wronged us. Amen.
Amen.
All right, if you want to go to children's church, Rachel and Danya are your children's church teachers. It's up to 5th grade, you can do that. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this day, and thank you for your word and the examples found in Scripture. Amen. Amen. So today we're going to conclude our walk through Genesis. I really enjoyed Genesis. It's the first book of the Bible, and Genesis concludes with this long story about Joseph. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story of Joseph until we get to the passage that we're reading today. So Joseph is sold by his brothers into slavery, because he predicted a future. He dreamed of a future in which his brothers would be subservient to them. So it would be like you, Aiden, coming and telling your older brother that you had a dream that your older brother was going to bow down to you. And then your older brother is angry and jealous and sells you into slavery into Egypt. And so we would not blame you, Aiden, if you had a grudge against your brother. But the story gets really interesting after that. So things look bad for Joseph. He's sold into slavery. He works for a man named Potiphar. But he ends up being really wise and really hardworking. So everything he does prospers. And he's given more and more responsibility by Potiphar. But then he's accused of assault. And he's thrown into prison. And so things look bad all over again. And yet, but he's wise and he's hardworking. So he's given a lot of responsibilities in the prison. And it's in this prison where he starts using his gift again. His gift of dreaming prophetic dreams and interpreting those dreams. And then after a whole crazy ordeal, Pharaoh gets wind of this Hebrew in prison who can interpret dreams. And Pharaoh has had this wild dream that nobody else can interpret. But Joseph comes and tells him, your dream means that there's going to be 7 great years of plenty of harvest. And then after that, 7 terrible years of famine where there's going to be no food. And Pharaoh's like, oh, wow, you're very wise. What should I do? And Joseph says, well, you should find someone who's wise and hardworking to oversee the harvest and to store up the grain. Hint, hint, give me the job and get me out of prison. And lo and behold, Pharaoh hires Joseph to be his second in command. And Joseph oversees these 7 years of plenty and stores up 20% of the grain. And then when the 7 years of famine come, he opens the storehouses and sells the grain to the Egyptians. But the famine is not just in Egypt. It's over across the land. So people from all different countries are coming to Egypt to buy food. And he ends up meeting his brothers again. 10 of his brothers come down from Canaan, or sent by their father Jacob, to go buy food from the Egyptians. And they come and see Jacob face to face, but they don't recognize Joseph. And so now Joseph has to make a decision. I see my brothers again who sold me into slavery. What will I do? And so he ends up accusing them of being spies, throws them into prison, and saying, well, I'm going to let all of you go but one, and you've got to come back and bring your youngest brother, who you didn't bring with you. Because they said, oh, sir, we're not spies, we're just 10 sons of one man, and the youngest is left at home, and the other, he's gone. And they said, well, I don't believe you, I think you're spies, but if you go and bring that other brother back, then I'll believe you. And they just feel terrible. Oh my gosh, these terrible things have happened to us. Here we are in prison. And this is what they say to each other. They're speaking Hebrew to each other, and they don't think that these Egyptians can understand them. They say, we are clearly guilty for what we did to our brother when we saw his life in danger and when he begged us for mercy, but we didn't listen. That's why we're in this danger now. Now they think Joseph is just some cruel Egyptian overseer. And yet he understands Hebrew. And he can understand these brothers talking to themselves and admitting their guilt. And so when he hears that his brothers admit their guilt for what they did wrong, he ends up being overcome with emotion. He has to step out of the room and weep to himself because, listen, he thinks his brothers may have changed. So he sends them home, all but one, Simeon, who he keeps behind in prison. And so when the brothers go home, but they're afraid to return back with the youngest brother, Benjamin. Benjamin's the youngest. He's the baby of this family. After Joseph is supposedly killed, Jacob doesn't want to send Benjamin away, thinking, what might happen to Benjamin? They eat all the food and finally say, okay, let's all go back to Egypt. Take Benjamin with us. So they go back, and Joseph is so happy to see his brother Benjamin. He asks him, what about your father? Is he okay? He's so glad to hear that his father's okay. And so he ends up being a little nicer with them this time. He feeds them his feast, and he sends them home with sacks full of grain. But then he has another test for them. he puts this beautiful silver cup, this chalice, in the food bag of his brother Benjamin. Sneaks it in there. And so his brothers are on their way back to Canaan, and he sends his messenger, Joseph sends his messenger to go after them and say, Joseph's cup is missing. One of you must have stolen it. They say, oh no, of course not. Anybody who stole this thing, they should let him die. So they look through all their sacks, and they find the cup in Benjamin's sack. And oh, the brothers are so distraught. They promised their father that nothing bad would happen to little Benjamin, his baby. And yet they go to Joseph and they say, we'll be your slaves. Joseph says, oh, no, I'll just keep the thief as my slave. But the brothers, of course, they promised their father they would bring Benjamin back. Otherwise, their father would just die of a broken heart to lose both of the sons of his wife, Rachel. And so here is what happens. Joseph's brother Judah, and remember this about Judah, it was his idea to sell Joseph into slavery. And so Judah speaks up and tells Joseph about their father's grief and how their father died of a broken heart. Benjamin is kept as a slave. And this is what happens. Judah volunteers to be a slave in Benjamin's place. And that's when Joseph knows that his brothers have truly changed. That they would not treat Benjamin in the same way that they treated Joseph. Judah would lay down his life for others. Judah is a forerunner to Jesus, who is from the tribe of Judah. And so this is what Judah says. He says, when I go back to my father without our youngest brothers, whose life is so bound up with his, and when he sees that Benjamin isn't with us, he will die, and we will have sent our father, your servant, old as he is, to his grave in grief. I, your servant, guaranteed the young man's safety to my father, telling him, if I don't bring him back to you, it will be my fault forever. Now please, let me stay as your slave instead of the young man, so he can go back with his brothers. How can I go back to my father without the young man? I couldn't bear to see how badly my father would hurt. And thus begins our reading for today. Joseph could no longer control himself in front of all his attendants, so he declared, everyone, leave now. So no one stayed with him while he revealed his identity to his brothers. He wept so loudly that the Egyptians and Pharaoh's household heard him. Joseph said to his brothers, I'm Joseph. Is my father really still alive? His brothers couldn't respond because they were terrified before him. Joseph said to his brothers, come closer to me. And they moved closer. He said, I'm your brother, Joseph, the one you sold to Egypt. Now don't be upset and don't be angry with yourselves that you sold me here. Actually, God sent me before you to save lives. We've already had 2 years of famine in the land, and there are 5 years left without planting or harvesting. God sent me before you to make sure you'd survive and to rescue your lives in this amazing way. You didn't send me here. It was God who made me a father to Pharaoh, master of his entire household and ruler of the whole land of Egypt. Now hurry, go back to your father. Tell him that this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me master of all Egypt. Come down to me. Don't delay. You may live in the land of Goshen, so you will be near me, your children, your grandchildren, your flocks, your herd, everyone with you. I will support you there, so you and your household and everyone with you won't starve. The famine will last till 5 years. You and my brother Benjamin have seen with your own eyes that I'm speaking to you. Tell my father about my power in Egypt and about everything you've seen. Hurry and bring my father down here. He threw his arms around his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept on his shoulder. He kissed all of his brothers and wept embracingly. After that, his brothers were finally able to talk. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
This story was written so that Joseph would be your role model. It was written so that young women and men would be like Joseph. He's hardworking. He is wise. He's patient. He doesn't get discouraged. He makes the best out of a bad situation. This is the Harry Potter novel of when this was written. But you'll notice no magic in this. It's interestingly enough. No miracles in this whole story of Joseph. But that whole 13, 14 chapters are a great novel at the end of Genesis, written so that Joseph would be your hero and learn that with great, he had great power, great wisdom, great many gifts, and with all those abilities came great responsibility. And the biggest reason I want my children, my youth, to look up, and all of you, to look up to Joseph is because he is forgiving. He is forgiving. He's willing to trust his brothers again so that they can be reconciled. So years later, their father, Jacob, dies. This is in the last chapter of Genesis, Genesis 50. And when Jacob dies, his brothers are still wondering, like, oh, did Joseph hold a grudge against us? Now that Jacob's died, maybe now he's going to get his revenge. So they go to him. They go to Joseph and they say, we are so sorry. We'll be your slaves. And they weep. And Joseph weeps. And this is what, and they say, we'll be your slaves. And Joseph says to them, don't be afraid. Am I God? You planned something bad for me, but God produced something good for it in order to save the lives of many people as he's doing today. Don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your children. So he put them at ease and spoke reassuringly to them. And so ironically, he asks, am I God? Am I in the place of God? And yet Joseph seems to act so much like God acts. Joseph is patient. Joseph is generous. Joseph is hardworking. Joseph is making the best of a bad situation. And Joseph is forgiving and compassionate. Joseph acts like God. And that's why Joseph needs to be our role model. And I want Joseph to be your role model because you're like Joseph. All of you are like Joseph because all of you have a unique gift that you have to use, that God wants you to use to serve others, not just serve yourself. Jacob, he's in prison and he helps this baker and cupbearer who work for Pharaoh. They're in trouble and they have these dreams and he interprets these dreams for him. But he does it without any requirement of a reward or payment in return. He serves people without knowing whether that will result in anything good happening to them. He asks the cupbearer, please remember me when you go back and work for Pharaoh again, but he forgets for a few years. Jacob serves people without any hope of something in return, but his wisdom, his gifts do help him out. They do. The best thing that, the worst thing about Joseph is that he has to leave home to use his gifts. His gifts aren't appreciated among his family. And you may be in that situation. You may have gifts that are not appreciated or utilized in your current context. You may have to leave your family to go somewhere where you can find a better job and find a better environment, a better context. You have to leave your current group of friends so that you can use your abilities to make the world a better place. I just got a text from one of my good friends, Kyle, this morning. He says, Brad, we're leaving town today. They're going to be moving to Ohio. And it hurts, but he's going to find a job in Ohio where he can use his gifts and abilities. Sometimes you have to leave home to find a place that will really appreciate you. So Joseph leaves his family and finds in Pharaoh, in Egypt of all places, a place where people recognize his gifts, his wisdom, his hard work, nature, and they put him to use. They give him responsibility because they know that he has a lot of gifts to offer. Interestingly enough, in the story, it's like the church has to look up to Pharaoh. We have to be like he was because Pharaoh saw people's gifts and put them in places of responsibility. That's like my job. It's a job of all you who are spiritual leaders to notice the gifts of people in this church and outside the church. Say, you have a lot of gifts. I hope you'll come to this church and use those gifts to make the world a better place. Of course, the reason why it's so important is because I don't think a lot of churches do that. I mean, that's what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, is to nurture your gifts and then use those gifts to serve others. Let me give you an example. back in December, we took some of our kids to the nursing home in the neighborhood, and we brought them the Christmas ornaments, really beautiful Christmas ornaments, Christmas tree ornaments that a lot of y'all made, and Jamie facilitated through the studio. And we did it the year before by taking kids to Wesley Medical Center on a Sunday, on Christmas Day, and brought them these simple little ornaments and took them to people who had to work or had to be in the hospital on Christmas Day. And my gosh, I'll never forget the gratitude I saw from some of those people. There was a lady in the waiting room because her mother was having open heart surgery. She was the only person in that waiting room. The hospital was really cold and empty. And here these kids brought her this simple little ornament. And she cried because it just made her Christmas Day. And this year the kids talked about going to the nursing home for months. Now why? Because we didn't just make a difference in the lives of those people in the hospital or in the nursing home. We made a difference in the lives of the kids because they had gifts and we put them in positions of responsibility so that they could use those gifts to help others. That's what it means to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Not just to teach kids as disciples, but to also equip them to do ministry. Jamie was in the nascent stages of talking about this new ministry of continuing to work with the people over there at the nursing home. And I was talking with Jamie about this, and I said, well, Jamie, how is it going to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world? It's the mission of the church. Every ministry should fulfill that mission. And at first she said, Brad, we were just kind of chatting. She said, Brad, don't worry about it. It's going to be a small ministry. Maybe me, maybe Maria and Kim. And I said, well, I don't want it to be a small ministry. Because that means that doesn't make disciples. Y'all are already disciples. Y'all already do a lot of service. So how would that make new disciples? And I said, well, we were chatting, well, of course we can get kids and equip them and teach them about adults with mental disabilities and equip them to serve those adults, and not just kids, all of us. And we can all learn more about marginalized populations and understand them better so that we can serve them. And that's going to be a way in which that ministry will make disciples of Jesus Christ because it will teach them about people with needs, and then it will transform the world by making this community, it can be a community of isolation. There are a lot of people at that nursing home that have no family that comes to visit them. Is this right, Jamie?
Correct.
And you got a list even of people who no one visits them even at Christmas, right?
Yes.
And the people, that kind of ministry transforms the world by turning a community of isolation into a community of care. And so here's why it's so important that every ministry of the church make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. It's because lives are at stake. Right? Look at the story of Joseph. If he didn't use his gifts, hundreds of thousands of people would be dead of starvation. Lives hang in the balance if we don't be disciples of Jesus Christ and transform the world. That's why it's the mission of the church. God doesn't want us to get here and have a bake sale to pay the insurance note. God wants us to use all of our resources to make disciples who transform the world because the world needs transforming. God needs us to be disciples and to make disciples. It is the most important thing that we can do as individuals and as a church family. You're going to think I'm hating on bake sales. I don't mind bakes. I love a chocolate pie. Sue Armstrong knows I love chocolate pie and will accept one anytime. But not every ministry of the church will make disciples of Jesus Christ. If that bake sale is just going to pay the power bill of a church that is spiritually dead, there's no point. But if that bake sale is raising money to send kids to summer camp so that they can have the time and space to get to know Jesus better and have a personal relationship with Jesus, boy, that bake sale has helped make disciples of Jesus Christ. So let me end with this. God gives you gifts For a lot of you, it's you use those gifts for a job. You should use those gifts, and you get something in return, Xander. You know, I want you to have a good job one day. Use your gift, make some money. But God also expects you to use those gifts with no thought of any personal, immediate reward. And that's what Joseph ends up doing. Now, Joseph's doing just fine in terms of taking care of himself. But what he's also ended up doing is taking care of so many people who've done nothing for him. And then he becomes a disciple of God. And he transforms the world. Because he found a place that appreciated his gifts and put those gifts to use. The church will be that place. Amen?
Amen.